Let me ask you something. Have you ever made a decision so off-script, so unapproved, so wildly unfamily sanctioned that it got you disowned before dessert? Because I have. My name's Riley Monroe. I was raised in New Haven, Connecticut, in a house so obsessed with pedigree that dinner conversations felt like scholarship interviews. My dad was a constitutional law professor who corrected people's grammar for sport. My mom was an endocrinologist who could cancel a birthday if someone misread their glucose chart. And my sister? Valedictorian, Princeton, double PhDs. You know the type who probably does Latin crossword puzzles just for fun. Now me? I liked order, sure, but not the courtroom kind. I was drawn to something different. Not Ivy League honor societies, but combat readiness, discipline, leadership under pressure. While my sister was doing TEDx talks about cellular regeneration in high school, I was lifting weights, studying tactical logistics, and mapping out how to join the Marines the minute I turned 17. No one saw it coming. But then again, they never really looked at me close enough to know what I wanted. So one afternoon I walked into the recruiting office, signed the paperwork, raised my right hand, and swore in. No drama, no tears, no farewell speeches. That night at dinner, I dropped the news. I've enlisted, I ship out in August. My dad put his fork down like it was radioactive. You're not going anywhere. I already signed. And just like that, he stood up and said words I'll never forget. Then get out of this house. My mom didn't speak. She didn't have to. Her silence always carried more weight than his words. So I got up, packed a duffel bag with my old laptop, gym clothes, and my high school track jacket, the only thing I owned that had my name on it. I slept in my car in a Walmart parking lot that night. No drama, just peace. And that peace told me I was finally on my path. 3 months later, I landed at Parris Island. South Carolina humidity hit like a truck. Sand fleas, screaming drill instructors, the smell of sweat and regret. But there was something deeply comforting about it. The structure, the clarity, the chaos made sense. We lined up on yellow footprints, and I heard my last name shouted more times in 20 minutes than my dad had ever said it in a year. Funny how strangers saw more in me in minutes than my family did in a lifetime. In boot camp, nobody cared if you came from Yale or a halfway house. You either moved fast or you fell behind. No excuses, no bailouts. I didn't cry. I didn't fold. I didn't flinch. Because out here, performance mattered more than pedigree. And for the first time, that worked in my favor. And back home, my parents told everyone I was on a gap year. Cambria, my sister, told people I was finding myself. What they didn't know was that I was getting promoted to squad leader, earning my marksmanship badge, and preparing for a deployment I couldn't legally talk about. The silence from them? Total. If you've ever chased something that made your family say, "You're throwing your life away, listen up." They said I'd end up folding towels at the VA, that I'd come crawling back. Well, let me tell you about crawling. Week 3 of boot camp, we did a midnight live fire crawl under barbed wire. Real rounds overhead. Mud so thick it could swallow your boots whole. You keep your head too high, you're done. That night, the crawl wasn't about passing a test. It was about proving to myself that I could push through, with no applause, no camera, no family cheering on the sidelines. And that's when I learned. There's a kind of strength you earn in silence. One that doesn't need validation, just results. Fast forward a few months. I'm deployed in a region I still can't name. I'm leading Marines through pitch-black terrain with equipment that's barely hanging on, and every decision could mean life or death. Not drama, just reality. And that's when it hit me. My dad wasn't entirely wrong. His obsession with discipline, structure, debate, it wasn't useless. It just lacked context. He believed strength lived in academic papers. I learned it lives in real-time choices made when no one's watching. But when one of our guys didn't make it back, just chaos, not anyone's fault. I was the one who called his family, and I didn't speak like a soldier. I spoke like a human. That moment, That changed me. A week later, my commanding officer asked if I'd ever thought about staying in long term. I said no, not because I didn't love the Corps, but because something bigger had started forming. A vision. One I'd carry home like a blueprint. Here's the thing nobody tells you. Being disowned is less like an explosion and more like a door that closes softly behind you. And if you're not careful, you'll spend the rest of your life trying to get someone to open it. Unless you decide to build your own house instead. That's what I did. When I got back stateside, I didn't return to their front porch or the fake smiles at Thanksgiving. I got a warehouse job at night and coded during the day. My office was a plastic crate, a 5-year-old laptop, and coffee so bad it could strip paint. I wasn't building an app to impress Silicon Valley. I was solving a logistics problem that got people killed, and I was building it for people like me, those who knew what it meant to operate under pressure without excuses. I called it Redline Ops. The goal? Real-time logistics software that worked under stress in the field, not just in a boardroom. Look, if you're watching this thinking, I've been where Riley's been, let me tell you, you're not crazy, you're not alone, and you don't need anyone's permission to become who you are. You don't need the invite, you just need the vision. So drop a comment if your family ever wrote you off too early. Tell your story, or just say, still standing. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because this story's only getting started. The revenge isn't loud. It's disciplined. It's built line by line, in silence, until it's undeniable. Let me be real with you. Most people think starting over is some kind of dramatic movie moment. Rain, music swelling, a big monologue. But the truth? It's silent. It's boring. It's painfully repetitive. Starting over looks like instant oatmeal with a plastic spoon while your code crashes for the 3rd time before noon. That was me. After coming back from deployment, I didn't return to a home. I returned to a $400 a month studio in Scranton, Pennsylvania, with peeling paint and a mini fridge from the Reagan era. My bed, a mattress on the floor, my desk, a milk crate, my heater, in theory, functional. I worked night shifts hauling freight and spent my days sketching wireframes on receipt backs, running on gas station coffee and leftover discipline from the Corps. I wasn't broke. I was pre-bankrupt. You ever been so broke, even the free samples at Costco feel like handouts? Exactly. Here's the thing about rock bottom. It's solid. You stop worrying about impressing anyone because no one's looking. You stop waiting for a sign and start making one. In that tiny apartment, I built the skeleton of my logistics software. Not for fun, not for glory, but because I knew, deep down, that supply chain gaps didn't just cost companies money, they cost people lives. In the military, I'd seen convoys miss windows by 30 minutes and end up ambushed. Civilian logistics? An even bigger mess. Half the tech was bloated, slow, and overpriced. I figured if I could lead Marines through blackout zones, I could figure out how to track a damn pallet. So I called it Redline Ops. Fast, military-style, real-time tracking with encrypted redundancy. Was it pretty? No. It looked like it was designed by a caffeinated raccoon with PTSD, but it worked. Kind of. Somewhere in this chaos, I checked Instagram out of pure masochism. Cambria, my sister, had posted a photo of herself at an award ceremony with the caption, "Some of us grow, some of us drift." Passive-aggressive poetry at its finest. I didn't comment. I didn't like it. I just stared for a second, closed the app, and rewrote the part of my code that had been bugging out for 3 days. She'd meant it as shade. I took it as fuel. By the 4th month, I had an alpha version. Not a prototype, not a dream. A working, glitchy, functional mess of a system that could track shipments and handle low bandwidth zones. I was still eating old MREs from deployment, still sleeping in thermals because the heat barely worked, still duct taping my phone charger. My body ran on Marine time, up at 5 a.m., code till 7 p.m., test till midnight, repeat. People think building something is thrilling, but it's mostly Googling error codes at 3 a.m. while whispering, "Please don't crash, please don't crash." and still, I was moving. I emailed 7 veteran-owned contractors I found on a small forum. Nothing. 3 days later, still nothing. That's when I learned something important. Silence won't kill you, but doubt will. So I stopped refreshing my inbox and started coding the next update. Because if it moved, even 1 inch, I wasn't stuck. Then came the week where the universe seemed hell-bent on testing me. My car battery died. I jumped it with a solar charger from my deployment stash. My bank account hit $112.46. I sold my old combat boots on Facebook Marketplace for $45. Some guy in Omaha messaged, "Thanks for your service." I laughed and bought server credits with the money. Then, because of course, my heat shut off completely. I moved into my car for 2 weeks, slept in the back seat, cracked the window just enough to not die from carbon monoxide, and coded on the dashboard glow like it was normal. I wasn't thriving, but I wasn't quitting. And there's a difference. People wait for a breakthrough, a viral moment, a check, a sign. But my breakthrough came in the form of an old Marine buddy texting me out of nowhere. "Hey, you still alive?" His name was Nate. He was working logistics for a firm in Cincinnati. I told him I was building something. He said, "Everyone's building something. Let me know when it works." He didn't mean it cruelly, just blunt. And he was right. Talk means nothing if it doesn't ship. Eventually, I found a leaky garage in a bad part of town listed on Craigslist. No insulation, no plumbing, no lighting that worked right. Perfect. I moved Redline HQ into that garage, set up a folding chair, a table, and a power strip that only worked if you held the plug just right. Ran test cycles on a secondhand server I bought from a crypto bro who got bored. I stopped emailing people for a bit and started showing up, printed demo flyers, knocked on loading dock doors, sat in on webinars I wasn't invited to, sent LinkedIn requests to every person who had procurement in their bio. Still nothing. But I kept showing up, because Marines don't retreat from spreadsheets. One afternoon, I got a call from an Ohio number, a guy named Brant from Blue Garrison Logistics. "You mentioned adaptive routing with limited bandwidth failover. That real or just a theory?" "It's real. Prove it." I sent him a link. 6 minutes later, he called back. "If this dashboard does half of what you say, we need to talk." That was the moment I crossed out the top line on my whiteboard. Find one believer. Now it said, build what they can't ignore. You don't need 1 million likes. You don't need your family to clap. You need one person who sees the thing you built and says, "Let's go." Find that person, or keep building until they find you. Comment below if you've been ghosted while chasing your dream. If you've ever launched something into the void and waited for a miracle, I see you and subscribe. Because we're not just telling stories here. We're building blueprints for every misfit who dared to go off script. Here's something nobody tells you. Success doesn't feel like fireworks. It feels like eating cold peanut butter off a spoon while a build crashes for the 6th time in a row. It feels like checking your inbox 100 times a day for a reply that never comes. It feels like waiting on miracles and building anyway. After that call with Brant, something shifted. Not magically, but internally, because now someone believed, not in me, in the thing I built. That mattered more. He scheduled a demo, told me to come to Columbus, so I cleaned up my pitch, printed out my back-end flow chart, and drove 6 hours in a car that made a new noise every 20 miles. I parked outside a warehouse that looked like it hadn't had a fresh coat of paint since the Bush era. I wasn't nervous. I was ready. Brant wasn't alone. In the middle of my demo, a man walked in. Tall, built like a freight train, eyes sharp, familiar. "Riley Monroe?" he asked. "Yeah?" "I'll be damned. Delta Fire Team, Kandahar. You pulled me out when I got pinned by the compound wall. Used your boot as an antenna." I blinked. "Still got the signal, didn't I?" He grinned. "You built this?" I nodded. He turned to Brant. "We're doing the pilot." Just like that, let me say this. Real ones don't care if you went to Stanford. They care if you can deliver under pressure. That's why when Marcus, the guy from Kandahar, Sita, said, "You need backing," I listened. We sat in the break room sipping burnt coffee in silence. "Ever think about a co-founder?" he asked. I shrugged. "I didn't think I'd find someone who spoke fluent logistics and trauma." He laughed. "Fluent's generous, but I get it." That handshake? That wasn't friendship. That was war alliance. Once we signed the pilot with Blue Garrison, I moved fast. I cleaned up the codebase, rewrote some modules, and moved Redline Ops from my personal GitHub to a real, secure server. I filed the LLC online using a burner laptop that died midway. Had to redo it from scratch. No problem. I'd been through worse. Then I did something petty, therapeutic, strategic. I opened a spreadsheet titled Outreach Phase 2. It had 2 tabs: targets, people I hadn't pitched yet; ghosts, people who ignored me, all 47 of them. I wrote every single ghost a fresh email. Subject line, "Remember me." Body, Redline Ops now supports 3 pilot clients. We're delivering, iterating, and still here. Thought you'd want to know, because people who ignore scrappy startups usually regret it later. Attached, 1 clean screenshot of the new dashboard. No bragging, no fluff. Most went nowhere, but 1 came back. Her reply was short. "Your timing is good. Send a deck. Demo next week." Lindsay was a senior OPS manager at Cornerfield Group, a mid-tier defense logistics firm with coastal warehousing and government contracts. I showed up to that demo like I was walking into a job interview for my future. She said, "You've got 10 minutes, go." So I shared my screen and ran the demo. Dead zone rerouting, load consolidation, encrypted sync, the whole thing. Clean, sharp, no fluff. "What's your current footprint?" she asked. 3 pilots, self-managed, 94% uptime. She wrote something down. "You built this solo?" I nodded. She stared a beat too long, then said, "We're replacing a system 2 years late and $700K over budget. I need something live in 5 locations within 60 days. "You'll have it," I said, and I meant it. That night, I didn't throw a party. I didn't even sleep. I just stood in the middle of the garage and stared at the server logs, blinking like Morse code. I realized something. I wasn't waiting for approval anymore. I was executing, not surviving, scaling. But then, the past came calling. Old Gmail, junk folder, a doc alert. Subject line, "Private mortgage default notification, Blake family." I almost laughed. Thought it was spam, but then I saw my parents' names, my childhood home, past due 41 days, owed $9,913.22. Not my problem, right? But here's where it gets complicated. Because when you've built yourself up from absolutely nothing, watching the people who cast you out fall apart doesn't feel satisfying. It feels heavy. I called Marcus. "What do you want to do?" he asked. "Fix it, quietly." Marcus created a shell nonprofit, Harbor Light Foundation, mission to support retired educators with housing support. It was legal, it was quiet. It smelled like money laundering, but it was all above board. We paid the mortgage. 3 months forward. Set it to auto-renew. No thank you, no clue it was me. Then came the GoFundMe. My sister posted about mom's rare thyroid condition. Ongoing immunotherapy, not fully covered. The post had raised $740. I stared at it, picked up the phone, called Marcus again. "We're doing health now?" he asked. "Apparently." We paid it, quietly, recurring. Then Cambria posted again. "God always provides. Miracles come when you least expect them." I texted the screenshot to Marcus. He replied, "Apparently, we're miracles now." At a certain point, I stopped wanting their thanks. What I wanted was the scoreboard to be accurate. So we set up another LLC, signed my father to a fake curriculum consulting gig, paid him $11,500 a month. He told his colleagues he was now a state-level civic advisor. I sat back, drinking ginger tea from a soup mug in the same garage he once said I'd never amount to anything in. That quarter, I spent over $38,000 covering their lives. No one knew. Here's the question I want to ask you. If you could save the people who threw you away, would you? And if you did, would you tell them? Not every revenge story ends with a mic drop. Some end with quiet power, a choice, and the strength to stay silent while they praise a miracle you built with your bare hands. Drop a comment if you've ever been the silent support behind someone else's illusion, and hit subscribe, because Riley Monroe's story isn't over. It's just beginning to scale. You ever walk into a room and realize you're not the same person they remember? Not because of your clothes or your title, but because you finally stopped needing their approval. That was me, walking back into my childhood home for Thanksgiving, 3 years after being thrown out for joining the Marines. They didn't know I was coming. I wore jeans, boots, and a jacket that cost more than their dining room set, but didn't look it. I didn't need flash. I had leverage. Cambria opened the door. Her face froze like someone had just rebooted her operating system. She stepped aside without a word. Inside, the house looked the same, smelled the same lemon-scented judgment in the air. My mom glanced up from the kitchen like I was early for an appointment she forgot she made. "You're early," she said. "Plane landed early." She nodded. Like I was the mail. My dad didn't even show up until dinner was ready. When he did, he gave me a chin nod, the Blake family's version of pretending things are fine when they're not. The conversation around the table was peak performative. Cambria bragging about her toddler reading at a 3rd grade level, Mom ranting about property taxes, Dad sipping wine like it made him wise. No one asked what I'd been doing. They didn't want to know, and I didn't offer. After dessert, Cambria pulled out vacation photos. Lobster rolls, matching jackets, beige joy. I excused myself. Answered 2 Slack messages about a logistics sync bug that could have delayed a regional rollout. Came back in, sat down, and looked around that table. That's when it hit me. We weren't just estranged. We were living in separate timelines. I was managing 5-figure contracts in sweats while they still thought I was figuring myself out. So I made a decision. I reached into my bag and laid a binder flat on the table. Slim, clean. Inside, a printed article from a logistics journal. My face in the center. Headline: Riley Monroe, the veteran founder disrupting defense supply chains. Cambria squinted. "Wait, this is you?" My mom went still. My dad set down his fork like it had betrayed him. I said it calmly, evenly. "I've been running Redline Ops for over 3 years. We service 47 clients across 6 states. We handle real-time tracking, dead zone rerouting, emergency logistics failover." They blinked like I'd just spoken a different language. "Also," I continued, "some of that money funded the non-profit covering this house's mortgage." My mother's voice cracked. "What are you talking about?" I slid another document across the table. A payment record from the Harbor Light Foundation. I created the fund. I signed the checks. There was no miracle, Mom. There was me. My dad stood up like he was ready to leave, but had nowhere to go. "You lied to us," he said. "No," I replied. "I just stopped offering truth to people who never wanted it." Cambria snapped. "So you've been spying on us?" "No," I said. "I've been funding you, because I could. Because I believed, maybe, someday one of you would care enough to ask." They didn't thank me. They didn't apologize. They just sat there, stunned. I got up, slid on my jacket, and looked my dad dead in the eyes. "You taught me success had a dress code. That anything outside your path was failure. Well, I chose my own path, and now I pay your mortgage." I walked out. Didn't slam the door. Didn't need to. The silence I left behind was louder than any goodbye. Back in Tampa, I stood barefoot on my kitchen floor, eating cereal straight from the box, phone in hand. That's when she called. My mom. She never calls. Her voice was softer than usual, like she'd rehearsed vulnerability. "Your father and I didn't realize the scale of what you were doing," she said. I didn't answer. She pushed. "We were wondering if..." Maybe the support could continue, just for a few more months. I almost laughed. No, I said. That chapter's over. She scrambled. We didn't mean to. You meant every word, I said, and I meant mine. I hung up. Not out of anger, out of clarity, because forgiveness is one thing. Financing your own erasure, that's another. That week, I canceled every payment tied to them. Mortgage, gone. Utilities, disconnected from my accounts. Health coverage, canceled. My dad's fake consulting contract, dissolved. No announcement, no drama, just clean breaks. And just like that, the final cord was cut. People think winning is showing up to prove yourself. But the real win? Walking away and never needing to. I wasn't looking for redemption. I wasn't chasing closure. I was building the life I'd dreamed of in the cold, the silence, the duct-taped mornings when no one was clapping. And I didn't owe them a damn thing. There's a moment in every journey when things finally click. Not because it's easy, not because it's done, but because, for the first time in a long time, you're no longer performing. You're just living. After I cut the last financial ties to my family, something shifted. Quietly but permanently. I wasn't carrying their judgment anymore. I wasn't subsidizing their silence. I wasn't funding the illusion that I needed to prove anything. That weekend, I stood on the patio of my Florida house, barefoot, sipping gas station coffee like it was champagne. Grapefruit trees swayed in the breeze behind me. The sun hit the tile floor just right. I wasn't on vacation. I was home. I'd bought the house months earlier. A backup plan, a quiet escape. Now, it became the next chapter. I ripped down every generic art piece the realtor left, donated the tacky chairs, threw out the fake fern. Then I called a local designer, Elena Mataro, whose work I'd found online. She showed up in high-waisted jeans, clutching a sketch pad and zero tolerance for pretense. You said clean, grounded, and no law firm energy, she said, flipping through swatches. I nodded. Exactly. She grinned. You want a home, not a showroom. We picked white oak floors, matte stone countertops, open shelves with handmade mugs from a veteran-owned pottery studio in Montana. No art unless I knew who made it. Nothing shiny. Nothing trying to impress anyone. By the second week, I could walk across the house barefoot without stepping over my past. And that's when I filed 2 pieces of paperwork, terminated all financial obligations tied to my family, for good. Launched a new LLC. Not for redline ops, for something personal. It's a nonprofit for women veterans starting their own thing. Tech, trades, handmade goods, whatever. No degree requirements, no trauma essays, no tell us how sad your story is grant forms. Just proof of grit, clarity of purpose, and a plan. We called it Valor Rise. Rented a space near downtown Clearwater, hired a small admin team, launched with small 10K, 25K micro grants and peer-led mentorships. No spotlights, no pity, just power. I didn't build Valor Rise to be applauded. I built it for every woman who never got a seat at the table and didn't wait for one. Things weren't slowing down. We picked up 2 new defense subcontractor clients in Georgia. Marcus flew in from Portland for systems integration, ended up staying a week just to enjoy the Florida winter. You've created a monster, he said, sipping a cortado from my kitchen. I created breathing room, I said. By December, I had a rhythm. Monday, Thursday, run ops and pitch. Friday, mentor Valor Rise applicants and send personalized rejection messages with real feedback. That was the week I met Caleb. It was a women in tech mixer at a beach bar. I was only there to show face, not flirt. Then I cracked a joke about some crypto bros pitch deck and Caleb laughed. Genuinely. No smirk, no overcompensating. We talked for 20 minutes about rural logistics in mobile clinics, then 10 about barbecue, then 5 about why no one makes decent seafood stew anymore. You've got a radar for people, he said. You're the first person in years who hasn't asked me where I went to college, I replied. He shrugged. That stuff only matters to people still trying to impress a dinner table that's not listening. I saved his number. A few weeks later, I hosted a backyard dinner. String lights, paper plates, no humble brags, some red line folks, some Valor Rise women, a few Marines I hadn't seen since deployment. We passed grilled corn, sweet tea, and laughter. Nobody asked about funding rounds or LinkedIn bios. In the middle of it, I caught myself, mid-laugh, mid-sip, realizing something. I wasn't waiting anymore. Not for validation, not for recognition, not even for the version of love I used to beg for. A week before Christmas, my phone rang. It was my mom. Her voice was cautious, unrehearsed. "We were thinking about visiting Florida next month, if that's all right." I didn't answer right away. She added, "As your parents, if you'll allow it." So I set the terms. We met at a quiet cafe 2 blocks from Clearwater Beach, neutral ground. They arrived on time. My father, hair fully white. My mother, dressed in understated beige, like she didn't want to attract attention for once. They didn't hug me. We sat. My dad spoke first. "I read your interview in Founder's Digest. It's impressive." I nodded. "Thanks." My mom placed her hand lightly on the table. "We didn't understand before. You didn't need to follow anyone's path." I looked straight at her. "You don't need to say it if it's not true. I didn't invite you here for redemption." She didn't argue. Then my dad said something I never expected. "You asked me once if I saw you as part of this family. I didn't answer. Today I will. You're the proof I was wrong." I looked him dead in the eyes. "I didn't build this life to win your respect. I built it because it was mine to build, and I'm not shrinking back to fit inside some nostalgic fantasy." He nodded, and that was it. No parade, no tears, just clarity. Forgiveness isn't about waiting for an apology. It's about revoking their access to your energy until they've earned the right to enter your peace. You don't have to water yourself down so other people can swallow the version of you they prefer. Live loud, lead boldly, and never trade your voice for their comfort. If this story hits something real in you, drop a comment below. Tell me the moment you stopped shrinking to fit. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. You're allowed to leave the table if all they serve is shame.